Hey guys, welcome to the Cinema Corral. This is the section of my YouTube channel where I talk about the latest releases. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the films that came out the week of May 17th, 2019. Those include John Wick Chapter 3, The Sun Is Also a Star, Trial by Fire, and A Dog's Journey. So let's begin. Okay, so let's start out with the best film of the week, John Wick Chapter 3. What a ride. I absolutely loved this film. Normally, I'm not too huge into blockbuster action films. It's not really my cup of tea, but John Wick is just one of those franchises that is consistently good, both on a storytelling level and on an action set piece level. It's amazing. I absolutely adored every second of this film. Now, this film is not without problems. It's got some issues where a fight scene might drag on maybe about a minute or two longer than it needs to, but it corrects that issue by ending the fight scene around that point where things start to get a little bit tiresome. The acting is not 100% there. Keanu Reeves isn't necessarily the greatest actor, but he's giving it his all, and I think his performance actually works for the type of character that John Wick is. The adjudicator, she's a little bit stiff, but I also think that it kind of works. I understand why people aren't exactly thrilled with her performance, but I think, she's like a bureaucrat. That kind of makes sense to me why she'd be very, it is not this, or it is not that. No contractions in her sentence, just very matter of fact. I gotta say, the action scenes in this film, like the other films, are just amazing. I love how there's not a lot of quick edits. That's something that a lot of action films just kind of fall into that trope. There's a lot of long takes so you can actually see what's going on. At no point was I ever confused as to where anybody was. So there's a lot of consistent editing, and I loved it. I love the continuation of the world building that we have going on. The Casablanca scene was easily one of the greatest scenes in the film. It's an amazing fight scene, and you just kind of know that you're in for a treat in the first fight scene, where John Wick takes a guy out with a book. That's pretty awesome. Like I said, it's not perfect, but much like Avengers Endgame, it is an absolute thrill. If you're into action movies, definitely go see this movie. If you're a John Wick fan, you're going to love it. One small thing, though, it's not really a detriment to the film, is that whenever something happens, they do a lot of things in crowded places. People are getting shanked in subway stations, and nobody's screaming, nobody's running, nobody's calling the police. So it's kind of hard to entirely buy that, but the rest of the film absolutely works for me. I'm buying it on Blu-ray. I'm going to go ahead and give it an A-. Alright, next up we have The Sun Is Also a Star. This is based on a book. I have not read the book, though I'm absolutely not the demographic for a young adult romance novel. This is perfunctory. I've seen a couple of reviews saying that it's basically something you would find on Netflix, so why would teens pay money to go see this in a theater? And they're absolutely right. The two leads are fine. They don't have the greatest chemistry, and sometimes they have bad deliveries on their lines. The cinematography is fine, the editing is okay. There's a lot of pseudo-intellectual fluff at the beginning and in the middle about multiversal theory and the Big Bang, and basically you've seen the movie if you've seen the trailer. There are no surprises in this film because they gave everything away in the trailer. There's a point where they could have ended the movie and it would have been satisfying in a bittersweet kind of way, but they continue to keep going through with the film for another 10 minutes, and that's kind of annoying. There's also a lot of contrivances in this film, and it makes it really hard to buy that it's trying to be taken seriously. The male lead, I think the character's name is Daniel. His story with his family was a lot more interesting than Tasha. I think that was the name of the girl lead. And Tasha's story is supposed to be like this ticking clock that we have in the background of her family being deported back to Jamaica in a day, so they have to fall in love in a day. But honestly, I found myself not caring about her story. I cared a little bit more about Daniel's story and him trying to get into Dartmouth. It's fine if you're into cheesy romantic movies and you want to go out on a date night or something, or if you're a teen and you're listening to this, then you might enjoy it more than I did. I'm going to go ahead and give it a C-. I don't really think it's all that great. It's not really worth your time. It just kind of feels like a film that's going to be forgotten about in a couple of months, so, it's harmless. Alright, next up we have A Dog's Journey. This is the third film in this A Dog's Blank franchise, and honestly, I hate these movies. Now, this film is not offensively bad. I have seen far worse films. In fact, A Dog's Purpose is 100% inferior to this film. but it doesn't make me dislike this film any less. I cannot stand these films. They're pandering in its cutesy humor, and it's not even funny cutesy humor. It's just, oh look, a dog, and the dog did a thing. Laugh. And that's basically the audience that I was with. Like, the dog said something stupid like, I wish my bed was made of bacon. And then there was just a laughter in the audience. And it's just like, that's not funny. Like, yeah, dogs and bacon, but that's not really a joke. The core of the story is fine for what it is. It's a continuation, like I said, of a dog's purpose. Dennis Quaid's dog dies, happens in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler. And then he, before the dog dies, he tells the dog to protect his granddaughter, and that's basically the movie. The dog is serving the purpose of protecting his granddaughter. I will give this film credit. It is a lot more focused than the first film, because the first film was all over the place and showing like 17 different people having this dog reincarnated. I can't bring myself to like this film. I can't bring myself to like any of these films. They're just emotionally manipulative. And a lot of that comes from, oh, it's sad because I like dogs and the dog died, and, everybody was tearing up with the first death. And I'm like, the dog comes back in like 5 minutes. There's no reason to be upset about this. Honestly, I wouldn't mind these movies so much if it weren't for the stupid, grating, obnoxiously unfunny voiceover. I don't remember if it was Josh Gad in the first film, but here Josh Gad does the voice of the dog. He is unfunny. I don't know if it's just Josh Gad in general I don't like, or the stuff that he's given him to work with, but every time the dog opens his mouth, it's some stupid line. It's some stupid mood and tone-breaking line. Like, there's a scene where the girl and her friend, they discover that the guy has cancer. It's a serious scene, and it's played pretty seriously. And then the dog, in a previous life, was trained to sniff out cancer, so he's sniffed out cancer in this life. And he's like, oh, I remember this game. I smell the smell. I get a treat. You owe me a treat. And that's how the scene ends. And it's not funny. I hate these movies. And really, I hate these movies more than I honestly should. They're not really that worth getting upset about. But it's the fact that it's schlock. It's Hallmark movie schlock. It's basically a talking dog or a talking cat with a budget. If you've seen those movies, it's basically that, but like the dog cannot talk to humans. It's just bottom of the barrel crap. Needless to say, I did not have a good time at this movie. If you like dogs, you might like it more than I did. It's not offensively bad, but I just hate the voiceover dog movie shtick. It's grown old. It wasn't funny the first time. It definitely wasn't funny the second time, and it's absolutely, most definitely unfunny the third time. A lot of the characters in this film are very two-dimensional, so characters that are supposed to be evil, they're just cartoonishly evil. The mom in general is absolutely evil, just like getting day drunk and spending inheritance money on cars and houses and fancy dinners. Then there's a boyfriend who practically sexually assaults CJ, that's the main girl in this film. I mentioned a scene in which a guy gets cancer. They find out that he has cancer, and he has the talk with CJ and his then girlfriend, and the girlfriend's like, what? No, I don't like hospitals, you know that, and then breaks up with him because she doesn't want to take care of him, and it's just, there's no depth to the characters. Like I said, I will give this movie credit for at least being more focused than the first one, but it's not very good. I'm giving it a D+. Last up, we have Trial by Fire, and this is a movie that I honestly had no idea even existed. A little background if you're new to the channel, I am a projectionist at a movie theater, and part of my job is programming playlists, so it's not like we're actually getting reels of film, we're actually doing it all digitally now, so it's in the computer. And so I build playlists with, the movies and any kind of special messaging that we have from corporate, and the trailers. I have not once seen a trailer for this movie. I have not programmed it. It wasn't until the week of that I got a poster for this thing. I also do the posters. So this movie just kind of came out of nowhere. Honestly, I liked it. I know that it does not have very good reviews. And I'm not saying that it's the pinnacle of cinema for this year, but I was not unhappy being at the theater. I was invested in the film. Performances are great. This stars Jack O'Connell and Laura Dern, and it tells the true story of the wrongful murder by the state of Cameron Todd Willingham. He was a guy who lived in Texas, and his house burnt down, and he lost his 3 children. and he was unfairly put to death through the death penalty by the state of Texas. And a lot of the information they presented in court was false. They had a psychiatric professional that labeled this guy as a psychopath without even meeting him, entirely based on an Iron Maiden poster he had in his room. The fire marshals, they didn't even do their job right, and they proclaimed it to be arson when it was absolutely not arson. This film takes a very anti-death sentence stance, and I applaud that. I do think that the death sentence is not necessarily the greatest route to go, especially when we have cases, so many cases where people are just wrongly accused of crimes that they didn't even commit. And so by the time that I left the theater, I was thoroughly angry at the state of Texas for not only wrongly accusing this man, murdering him, but also refusing to acknowledge that they wrongfully murdered him. Now, I will admit that there are a lot of problems with this film. It's a little bit melodramatic in some places. There's a scene where Willingham and his then wife are being interrogated by the cops, and there's just an excessive amount of editing that honestly did not need to be there. It could have been a couple edits and you would have had the same scene and it would have flowed a lot smoother, but it was a cut every 3 seconds and it was just excessive and distracting. It feels kind of like maybe a Lifetime movie, but not entirely awful. This is definitely something you can watch. I probably wouldn't sit through it again, but it did inspire me to go through and actually read up on the case. There is another documentary, I think it's called Incendiary, and it's about this case. I haven't seen it. I think it might be on either Amazon Prime or Hulu, but I would like to check that out. The case is very interesting, especially just the amount of head turning that went on to wrongfully accuse this man. I probably won't add it to my Blu-ray collection, but I had a decent enough time at the theater. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a C-. So that's it for this episode of Cinema Corral. I hope you enjoyed. If you're new to the channel, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. You can follow me over on Facebook at Mario Bennese YouTube. I just uploaded a new episode of Silver Screen Academy discussing the 180-degree rule, so feel free to check that out. I don't know what my upload schedule is going to be on that. I honestly still trying to figure it out. I have some other stuff in the works. I'd like to do a rewind review for Aladdin in preparation for the remake that's coming out this week. But in any case, that's all I got for you this week, so I'll see you next time.